In 1943, one British warship vanished, without a single survivor. The North Atlantic in winter was a battlefield of storms, where one truth ruled: the ocean decides who lives. That night, someone reported a distant glow on the horizon, but no burning ship was ever found. No wreckage, no survivors. Not a single piece of metal ever found. Only a question the sea has never answered. On the night she vanished, the North Atlantic was a wall of darkness, waves rising and falling like the breath of something alive. Valkyrie pushed forward into it, her crew barely able to see more than a few ship lengths ahead, trusting instruments more than their own eyes. Even the convoy they escorted faded in and out of sight, swallowed by sleet and towering seas as the storm tightened around them. Every few seconds a breaking wave slammed against Valkyrie's hull, the impact shuddering through steel and bone alike. Inside the wardroom, officers strained over charts and reports, trying to keep track of ships they could no longer clearly see. On the bridge, Captain Arden watched the sea through sheets of rain, calm on the surface, alert underneath. He had seen storms like this, but something felt different. She had weathered worse seas before. Valkyrie was a tough little escort ship, forged by the same war that forged her crew. For months, she had run these northern escort routes, supply lifelines vital to the war effort, and notorious for sudden disappearances. Men boarded her with quiet resolve, knowing each departure into the Arctic seas might be their last. Yet they followed Arden without hesitation. That night, as Valkyrie moved deeper into the storm, the last visual contact from the convoy was lost. From this point on, the ship was truly alone. Elias Arden was shaped long before the war, born into hardship, raised on discipline, and taught early that survival often depended on resolve. His fellow officers remembered him as the kind of man who questioned risky orders, never hesitating to protect the sailors under his command. Behind closed doors, Arden pushed back against decisions he believed endangered lives, a rare defiance in a rigid wartime hierarchy. During the Norway operations, he dove into freezing water himself, hauling stranded sailors to safety. 11 men lived because of him. Before each voyage, Arden wrote the same line beside the crew list: "I will bring them home." For his men, it became a promise they trusted more than armor. One night, a young radio operator froze mid-sentence. Arden was the first to reach him, calming the panic before it spread. He often inspected the engine rooms alone, checking valves and gauges, never asking a sailor to endure conditions he wouldn't face himself. On the eve of Valkyrie's final mission, his officers gathered around the chart table. Arden warned them the storm ahead felt different. These faces, laughing, exhausted, unguarded, are the moments war rarely records. Men who joked together in calm seas would soon trust each other with their lives. Even off-duty, discipline ran deep. Yet on long patrols, small pockets of normal life conversation, a shared cigarette kept the crew human. Captain Elias Arden was known for that steadiness. In storms, in conflict, in silence, he carried the kind of calm that could steady an entire ship. Far from the front, shipyards across Britain worked relentlessly, steel, fire, and labor shaping the escort fleet that guarded the North Atlantic lifelines. Valkyrie was born in places like these. Machines roaring, sparks raining, men racing against a war that devoured ships faster than they could build them. As Valkyrie pushed deeper into the storm, a single, unnatural flash appeared on the horizon, too steady, too deliberate, to be lightning. Moments later, the radar picked up an echo, large, fast, and moving in ways no vessel should. Operators exchanged uneasy looks. Without warning, 3 torpedoes carved white scars across the waves, racing straight toward Valkyrie. A silent attack from an unseen enemy. Lookouts shouted, searching the darkness for a periscope or a wake. But the sea revealed nothing. Then the radar image warped, splitting, merging, flickering, as if whatever stalked them was shifting shape in the storm. For one brief second, lightning exposed a towering silhouette on the horizon, far larger than any German submarine. The mast groaned under the wind's fury, but the mysterious contact kept closing in, steady, relentless, and silent. Every flash of lightning seemed to reveal the threat a little clearer, as though the storm itself wanted them to see it. No U-boat was recorded in this sector that night. None. But the logs from that hour tell another story. Survivors from nearby convoys later said they felt it too, a pressure in the air, as if the sea were holding its breath. The convoy scattered in the chaos. leaving Valkyrie nearly alone, a solitary target in a vast, angry ocean. Then the most chilling sign appeared, a perfect V-shaped wake slicing through the water, yet no ship cast it. A distant orange flash erupted across the waves, either a misfire or the hunter preparing a second strike. Inside the radar cabin, a distorted pulse throbbed through the speakers, its rhythm mechanical, its source unknown. Through the binoculars, the shadow finally emerged, vast, silent, and unmistakably closing in. The fourth torpedo struck cleanly, a blast that tore through Valkyrie's bow and threw men off their feet. The storm had masked the attack, but now the hunter revealed itself. Amid the fire and smoke, Captain Arden seized the moment, barking orders with a calm that cut through panic. He knew this strike was only the beginning. Even burning, Valkyrie fought on. Her aft guns swung toward the darkness, firing at a threat no one could yet clearly see. In the radio room, Arden dictated what would become his final message. Convoy must break away. We will hold the enemy. General quarters sounded, flooding the corridors red. Sailors sprinted through rising heat and smoke, each man knowing the next minutes would decide their fate. Below deck, seawater burst through ruptured seams, a violent flood that slammed men against the bulkheads. As Valkyrie began to list to starboard, photographs would later show the faces of those aboard, young men who trusted Arden with their final voyage, never imagining how it would end. Arden ordered all watertight doors sealed. It was a brutal choice, locking compartments to save the rest of the ship. But every survivor said he hesitated only once. Another impact rocked the bridge. Charts lifted into the air, instruments smashed against the deck, and for a moment the entire ship felt weightless, as if the sea itself held her in its grip. When the shaking stopped, Arden stood alone at the porthole, watching the storm swallow the horizon. In that silent moment he made his decision, and sealed his fate. Before dawn broke, rescue ships cut through the dark waters, following Valkyrie's last reported heading, praying they were not too late. Some claimed the storm itself consumed Valkyrie, but storms don't swallow an entire warship without leaving wreckage behind. Others suggested a German attack, yet post-war records show no U-boat anywhere near the convoy, and none possessed a weapon that could kill silently. A darker theory emerged that Arden executed Protocol 7, a rumored order allowing captains to scuttle their ship in extreme situations to protect intelligence. But the Royal Navy has never admitted such a directive existed. Searchers reached the coordinates where Valkyrie's radar blip had vanished. Nothing remained, just an empty horizon blending into storm-lit waves. They finally found a thin trail of oil stretching across the surf, but no hull plates, no rafts, nothing large enough to explain the ship's fate. Aircraft crisscrossed the area, flying low over churned waters. No survivors, no flares, no drifting bodies, only the Atlantic erasing every trace. Hours later, they recovered a single lifeboat intact, unbroken, and completely empty. No oars missing, no bloodstains, no supplies disturbed, as if whoever boarded it simply vanished. These were men who had pulled sailors from impossible seas. Yet in this operation, after days of searching, they stood defeated. For the first time they had found nothing. Command widened the search radius, pushing into fog-filled waters far beyond Valkyrie's route, but every mile only deepened the mystery. Tide charts and wind patterns were recalculated repeatedly. Still, none of the drift models could account for an entire ship disappearing without debris. Back in the operations room, technicians replayed radar tapes frame by frame, yet Valkyrie's last echo simply faded out. With no sign of an approaching vessel, 6 major search zones were marked, each swept multiple times. Every circle on the map represented hours of manpower, and every circle returned empty. In the pale morning fog, rescue ships sailed home slowly, as though burdened by the unanswered questions they carried with them. Investigators compared testimonies, drift reports, and weather logs, but every new document only repeated the same truth, no explanation fully fit. Sonar sweeps probed the depths for days, scanning cold canyons miles below. Yet there was no hull, no engine block, not even a scattering of steel. It was as if Valkyrie had slipped into a place sonar could not reach. In 1957, 15 years after Valkyrie vanished, Arden's family received an unsigned letter. It contained no return address, no explanation, only a single line in uneven handwriting. He kept his promise. Not a single man died in the enemy's hands. No signature, just the words, "a soldier he saved." And in that moment, everything changed. The letter forced the Admiralty to re-evaluate the entire case. For years, Valkyrie had been a stain of unanswered questions. But now the mystery carried something else, a certainty of sacrifice. Arden's name was carved into the memorial wall, not as a missing officer, but as a man who fulfilled his final vow. Arden's cabin remained untouched on the surviving sister ship. A neat bunk, a folded coat. A logbook opened to a half-finished sentence. It felt less like the room of a man lost to the sea, and more like a promise interrupted. In old naval archives, a photo was found 3 young officers posing before deployment. One of them was Elias Arden. He looked unremarkable, almost shy. Yet every sailor who served with him later said the same thing. He never feared the sea. Only failing his men? Among Arden's belongings, his pocket watch was recovered from a locker on shore. The hands had stopped years ago. Some said it broke during his final departure. Others believed it stopped the moment Valkyrie vanished. Either way, it has never ticked again. Today, the North Sea looks calm, almost gentle. No trace remains of the ship that disappeared beneath its storms, nor the man who saved his entire crew. But every sunrise over these waters carries a quiet truth. Heroes are not always found. Some are simply remembered. If you found this story compelling, consider subscribing and leaving a like. Your support helps us continue uncovering forgotten chapters of history.